It's another edition of the Sports Shop Philly, and yes, you noticed that we're not at the shop, no Toot the Barber, but still getting you ready for the biggest game that we've had here in Philadelphia in a long time. So beyond just the game itself, we need to send a message not only to the Vikings fans, but the rest of the national media out there who likes to paint us as gang members and everything else. So you know the usual, Jeff Mosher, myself, Eitan Shannon. We're joined by some special guests. Comcast Philadelphia, part of the NBC Philadelphia.
Get it right. Get it right.
I have. Otherwise, I'll be scolded, and he won't be allowed back. The higher up to say, Derrick Gunn, Gunner's in the house. 97.5 The Fanatics. Jamie Lynch, the bro, also in the house. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
I'm hanging out with royalty.
No, listen, well, it was good to get Jamie in here for sure. You know, he didn't bring his crown, but he did bring his mask. So you'll see a lot of these in Philadelphia. And let's start with this, if we can. But
I've got a mask right here, Jawn.
What's going on over here?
Look at that.
Oh, what's going on over here? Come on, hang out over here, will you? We just noticed you guys are just lingering in the back. What's going on? Oh, my God.
What's going on, guys?
E-Rock and Gail from 4th of July. Are you kidding me?
What's up?
What's up?
What's happening,
What's
guys?
going on? I mean, it wouldn't be a party without these guys as well, right? All right, come on in. Let's get everybody in here.
Yes, sir.
Right? So let's start with these masks, because it doesn't matter if from media to fan to player, this thing now, love it or hate it, this thing now represents Philadelphia. This is Philadelphia. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I've never gone to a game. I can't wait to see what happens on Sunday where the dogs have taken over the stadium. I've never seen that happen before, but I'm looking forward to it.
Bring your dog to work then.
Absolutely. And look, it's an inside joke, and it's for us. Everybody loves a good inside joke. It's not for the national media. It's not for any other fan base. It's not for Vikings fans. It's just between us. Quite frankly, I find it hilarious.
Now, here's what it's going to be, though. You're right. It starts off as an inside joke, just like the terrible towel was a Pittsburgh thing. Just like the rally monkey was an Anaheim thing. This thing is going to be national by this time next week, and everybody's going to be on the Eagles dog bandwagon.
And the best part of it is why it works is because the players bought it. We didn't buy it. We're feeding off of them. They bought into it, helped them succeed, and it's beautiful.
All right, here's the issue.
Hold on. Now, you know a lot of people are going to bring dog masks. How many people are going to bring pooper scoopers with them? I'm just saying. Just throwing it out there for conversation.
You got to bring at least 2.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. All right, here's my question. And you guys are perfect for this because you will be at the game with your mask.
Yes, sir.
And the beauty of it is that the link has allowed the masks in now. At public pressure from people like you. Yeah. That's fine as long as you follow the regular channels. But this is the issue that I've had all week. When you put this thing on, you can't really, well, first off, you're blind. But you can't really hear me, right? Like, I'm really muffled. So what happens on the field, because you want to be loud and you want to be rabid, no pun intended, but you also want to have this thing on and scare the shit out of people.
Listen, I've been walking around with this thing on for the last couple of days just to try it out. Training, yes, dog training. You can't wear this thing more than 5 minutes without feeling like you're suffocating. Plus your eyes, you see out of the nose, so you can't see anything. But if you wear a hat, you wear a hat.
So you have the trick here. Gail knows.
You wear the hat, and you can see through the mouth. But I don't think anybody's actually going to be wearing. A, it's so suffocating. B, you can't see anything. You paid all this money for a ticket. Why would you wear a mask? I don't think anybody has anything to worry about with the crowd noise. Nobody's going to be wearing it.
Can you make it like the terrible towel and just be kind of like waving it around like that?
In fact, you can sort of like try.
Oh, he's got it.
Yes.
Minnesota Vikings. I poop on you. You know,
it keeps your hair warm too.
The same effect, though. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. I've just never seen anything like this before. Which also segues into now what's happening over this past week. The clips that are going around. We played it on the morning show where it's just people from Minnesota are sending out warnings. This is like, and I don't mean to make light of what happened in Hawaii by any means, but this is like a catastrophic signal that's being sent out to anybody traveling to Philadelphia, like, warning, warning, there are gangs, there are roving gangs of drunken fans. And I'm like, well, you know, these guys aren't that drunk.
So the gang. You mean to tell me the franchise that took its name from people who are known for raping, pillaging, and conquering are now scared to
the
come to
irony.
Philadelphia and interfere. The irony is amazing.
And they just stole that fake-ass skull thing from the Iceland national team 2 years ago.
Is that
They're
right?
acting like this is some new, it's a brand new thing.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So that's a brand new chant that they stole 2 years ago. And
It's
don't
not
they
even
have?
theirs.
Isn't their main guy who wears the headdress and the gear? Isn't he a Cowboys fan?
Well, here's the explanation, because I called it out on Twitter.
Okay.
I was like, all right, you see this dude with the muscles and the blonde braids, which is always a good look with muscles and blonde braids.
He's a Viking.
But he's got like a Dallas logo right here. And then if you look closely, there's some other logos around. Here's the actual story from the Minnesota Vikings official website who interviewed them. He's a big Randy Moss fan. He's got a Randy Moss tattoo right here.
Okay.
So every game that he would go to, where Randy would score a touchdown and jump into his arms, he would get that team's logo tattooed on him. Now, could you imagine getting a tattoo of another team every time another man jumped into your arms? What is that about?
And this is the man who leads their organization out there on the field?
And Philadelphia is the one with the crazy fans?
Yeah, really.
We're never going to get by it. We'll win this. We'll have a Super Bowl parade here in Philadelphia. It'll be a national story. It'll be a feel-good thing. ESPN, NBC, everybody will come in here, and still there'll be this warning. It'll be like when you take a flight to, I don't know, Beirut, and then you have to see this warning that says, you know, if you are not a citizen of this country, beware, like you might not make it back. And I feel like this has now become its own entity in Philadelphia.
Yeah, instead of it being talked about as a great parade, Philadelphia's first Super Bowl parade,
Correct.
it will be preceded by the city that still threw snowball, the Santa Claus. I don't know how you can get past that, man.
They still don't understand that the guy was drunk. We're never going to get back. Well, listen, first off, they need to make it, and they need to actually have the parade. Let me start first, and we can go around here. I feel so much better about this game than I did about the Atlanta Falcons game. And I was nervous. I didn't think Foles could do it. I was just up in the air, and the fandom takes over on game day, don't get me wrong, but when you have so much time to stand over your golf ball and think about how to hit it, you just start to overthink things. And Gunner, you're there, and you see these guys. I just feel like momentum is real now.
Now, see, I felt better about the Falcons game than I do this game.
Okay.
Because I think Mike Zimmer is one of the better defensive minds in the game today. I think Pat Shurmur is an incredible offensive mind. I just keep going back and forth with these matchups. You have Mike Zimmer's defense against Jim Schwartz's defense. You have Pat Shurmur's offense, and you have Doug Peterson's offense. And they both are very efficient at what they do. They both make great in-game adjustments.
Right.
I understand that hopefully the most definitive factor is Nick Foles is playing this game right here in his own backyard. But this Vikings team didn't just happen to get here by luck. There's a reason why their numbers speak for themselves across the board, especially on defense. They got 3 first-round picks in the back end. I think they have 2 of the best linebackers in the game today, Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks. And Everson Griffin up front, I think, is one of the better pass rushers in the game today. And he's going to be on the side of Big V.
Yep.
Now, is Big V going to take him one-on-one, or is he going to need help on that side, Jeff?
I'm going to say he's going to need help, but I got to go back to something you just said.
Yeah.
The Vikings didn't make this game because of what?
Okay, last game was up. The last game. That was divine intervention. Wait a minute now. Maybe it was divine intervention. Maybe they're on this mission.
But that wouldn't be luck.
No,
okay.
That was planned.
Just the way Shurmur drew it up. The safety's going to miss the tackle completely.
Absolutely.
That's not
There's no question
Can you
about
get
it.
this man a dog hat,
There's
please?
no question about it.
Can you give him a
No,
dog
sorry,
hat?
brother. You already had that one on.
He knows better.
Look, I think we need to talk about it. It's a chess match, right? And unlike a great chess championship between 2, you're right, you got 4.
Yeah.
You got Doug Peterson right now against Mike Zimmer, and you got Jim Schwartz against Pat Shurmur.
Right.
It's going to be a great game.
No question
That's great.
about it.
It's 4 of the best in the business right now.
Both teams don't give up much in a run. Both teams don't give up a lot of points. Both teams have played big games. You look at this Vikings team, they put a smack down on the Rams in Minnesota, held them to 7 points. They go down to Atlanta and hold the Falcons to 9 points in their backyard. So obviously, I think it's going to be one of these. It's going to be like the Crips versus the Bloods.
Well, hold on. We can't go game now. You can't fall.
I'm just saying.
They're waiting for us
Don't
to
worry,
fall
Minnesota
into that.
fans. The Crips and Bloods are not going to be in the stadium. I'm saying the Vikings and the Eagles are going to be like the Crips and the Bloods. It's going to be knocked down, drag out, brass knuckle type brawl. Somebody's getting bloodied this game. Somebody's limping off the field this game. Plain and simple.
Leave it together. We're trying to avoid the whole Philadelphia gang stereotype, and you just brought Crips and Bloods into it.
No, I clarified.
Go MS-13 or something.
I said the two teams in the stadium, not the fans surrounding the stadium.
But wasn't that such a great juxtaposition? First you talk about the chess match, which are the coaches, and moving the parts around, and then you talk about the gritty, heavyweight fight that it's going to be. And it's going to be a game of who wants it more, period.
Absolutely.
So you're going to have that chess match. You're going to have that heavyweight fight. And that's what's so beautiful about this NFC Championship game.
I hope it's a game like 10-7. I really do. I'm tired of watching pinball football. I'm tired of watching 35-30 games. I want the game to get back to what it was. You know, in the mud, knuckles in the mud.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's not today's football, man. The league has changed the game where it caters obviously more to the offense. But I want to see some old school football for a championship game here.
You guys are going to be down. All three of you guys are going to be down there, and the electricity at the stadium when you're in the
I just got my voice back.
Right.
Like literally.
You couldn't talk for
yesterday.
3 days.
Yeah. I've been doing tea and honey all week trying to get ready for this weekend.
It's still, and it's going to be gone probably before the game
Monday and
kicks
Tuesday,
off.
but yeah, by halftime.
Especially if you tailgate to the game by 6 o'clock.
This is the biggest game. I mean, realistically, if you look at it, 04 is the easy answer. But not Chip's first year. Nobody felt this way.
I went out to the Arizona championship game for fun.
Is it?
But that was an away game, so.
But was it still that feel, or?
No, it's hard when you're on the road. It's not, you know, you have your pockets, but it's not the same feel as here, man. That place last Saturday. I don't think I've ever heard it so loud.
I can't remember the city being just so unified. We make jokes all the time about how we're ancient Greeks on the air, about how whenever we have an issue about who to start or why somebody's struggling or if this guy's really hurt, we're so fragmented. You know, you're texting me because I'm acting like an asshole on the air. You're like, no, you're wrong. And we go on Twitter, and then bro's like, you know, going in there as well. We have so many different factions. Yet, if it's Colin Cowherd or some jackass in Minnesota who says something, we unite. And it's like, you know, this is Sparta. And then you get kicked in the pit, or, you know, these dogs.
It's all different sizes of the dogs, you know, in the pack. But it's like the wolf pack. You know what I mean? We're rolling in there like a total wolf pack, and we all bite.
That's true. We all had our shots, right?
Some of us. Home dog's gonna eat, right?
That's right. That's right. All right. What's the biggest concern? Seriously, like, let's be honest with the situation, because we have good football minds. I'd say great football minds here. So let's look at this. No, you listen. You know too much, all right, for your own good, like me. What's the biggest concern? Start here. Yeah. What's the biggest concern
about it? You know, Nick Foles going against the Zimmer defense. You know, they rush for drop 7 just like we do. So exotic looks. You know, how is Nick Foles is going to play consistent? We need to see a consistent Foles, not turn the ball over. We should be all right. You run the ball and play defense.
Love it.
In a gritty knockout game like this, and with a chess match like this, it's often that one singular mistake that one team makes that defines the entire game. Now, are the Eagles going to play disciplined ball? Are they going to get the penalties like they have in the past? Are they going to turn the ball over? Or are they going to force Case Keenum, who has a history of throwing off of his back foot, lofting the ball off there? Their offensive line is their Achilles heel. Are we going to be able to create that turnover? Are we going to be able to create that mistake and capitalize on it?
I think if they do get Keenum to force a turnover, there's no doubt they're going to win the game. What Gale hit on, though, is the double A-gap blitzes. Yeah. Luckily, we have 3 hogs inside that I think can handle it. But if I see Foles start doing the 12-yard out scramble, that you're going to have a long day ahead of you.
That's the biggest concern?
Yeah.
A little burp in the baby?
Yeah. He was good last week. He hung in there. He made the right reads. He didn't bail out, and it went well.
All right, Gunnar, what's the one of your 5,000 concerns for this game?
Just one. I'm going to say it has to be this Eagles running game. And the numbers I keep going back to are this. Against the Falcons, Eagles had 49 yards rushing in the first quarter. Rest of the game against a smaller, fast Falcons defense, they had a grand total of 47. Now you're talking about a bigger, more conducive defense that has played together for a number of years. It's not like these guys just came together. They've been together a number of years in this Vikings defense. I don't want to see the Vikings defense force Nick Foles to throw the ball 40, 45 times a game. That's the last thing I want to see, because that's when they start to pin their ears back and start playing games up front with Nick Foles. I don't know if Nick Foles can handle this pressure. Nick Foles has handled everything up to this point fine. But like I said, Mike Zimmer's a different dude when it comes to devising schemes to disrupt quarterbacks and offensive flows.
All right, my biggest concern is along those lines. I'm going to get a little X and O here. My concern is the lack of a true explosive playmaker on offense that can beat man coverage. Because the Eagles did a phenomenal job of running and then passing on first down, which is a play action down, against a zone team like Atlanta, where you had that cushion to be able to play pitch and catch with those receivers. Now you got a team that plays good, ironclad man-to-man defense, and somebody's going to have to make a play. They really, in this game, if I could take one guy back, not named Carson Wentz, it would be Darren Sproles. Because I feel like they're just missing that one guy in a game that you know is going to be tight. One guy to break a play. The Eagles don't have too many guys that can break a play. Maybe it's Nelson Aguilar in the slot. He's, to me, the guy who's got to be the biggest key. But their lack of explosion against a defense like Minnesota, I think can come back to haunt them.
You see Alshon's got 7 career touchdowns in 9 games versus Everson.
Against Xavier
Rhodes. Yeah, so I mean.
Only one on Xavier.
That's fine, though.
Trying to look for something there, Jeff.
Way to squash his dreams.
Seriously, they're going to have it. I wonder, how packed do you think it's going to be as far as like the city leading up to it and actually in the stadium with Vikings fans? Not, of course, that it's going to be loud at all, but do you think they're going to get noticeable amount of fans? Or do you think like this? Because do you really think that they're listening to this warning? Do you really think that there are people that are borderline and saying, you know, it's my team, I've rooted for my team? I mean, can you imagine that? Like there's some SARS warning in San Diego that would prevent us from going out there? No, we would be out there with those masks on, like, all right, let's roll, man. EAGLES. I just can't imagine having some sort of deterrent like this prevent you from coming out here, but part of me thinks that it will.
Tourists are dumb. They do dumb stuff on vacation. They go in the wrong neighborhood. You know, they're walking into a buzzsaw, so I'm not concerned.
And the worst part about that is if the Eagles win this game, they got to go to Minneapolis in a week, and all those fans got to welcome the Eagles fan into their town.
They'll hate us.
Wait a second.
We've seen Eagles fan. We were there in Washington week 1. We were there at the New York Giants game at MetLife Stadium. We were there in Los Angeles. It seems like this fan base created. They're the ones who invented taking over a stadium. We don't let that place get taken. Are you kidding me?
Not at all.
Are you kidding me?
Not at all.
And then that's a great point that the fans that they're so scared of, that next week if we win, we got to roll into their place and just trash the joint and bounce.
The Bloods and the Crips are coming.
Seriously, I can't even think of any type of like relationship analogy or any type of life analogy where your team or like your wife or your girlfriend or your buddy, and it's like now you're crashing at that person's house. It's for the week, and you're just eating all their food and everything. It's just like, all right, yeah, we'll take everything, and just trashing it. Not literally, of course, but just like, come on, Minnesota, Vikings fans, we kicked your ass last week. That's people are going to be taking vacations. That's probably going to be the least populated week for Minnesotans that week all year. I don't blame him.
I was about to get a 20% increase in population in 2 weeks.
Right. All right, let's go around. We get concerns now. Let's look at this. I'll start. Again, contrary to you, brother, I still think that I feel so much better this week. And I had them losing last week on the official prediction. Don't tell me about it, right? You won't have me back on the podcast. But this week, I think they come out. And I think that they really show that that's not a fluke and they have momentum. And I think it was 24-12 that I had them. 24-14 I had them winning. But I'll stick to that, 24-14. Listen, I think they can do it as long as they don't turn back into a pumpkin. And, Doug doesn't go vanilla and Bowles doesn't throw the wobble and all of a sudden that gets picked off and, all of a sudden the offensive line can't block. If everybody does what they did last week and he was close even in the first half, I think they can win. I'll say 24-14.
I'm going to go 20-17. The Eagles take this one. I think pressure bust pipes and flex your clocks. I mean, you got all that money in the offseason. People complain, and he's worth every penny.
It's him and Eric Gunn.
Every penny.
And last week he showed that. And I think that interior pressure, also pressure off the edge. Case Keenum hasn't seen this kind of pressure, and we bring it. So I'm positive.
Love it.
20-14 with Burns. There was a point in time during this season that we were all worried about have the Eagles peaked too early when we were just steamrolling teams and rolling them over. Well, they had some adversity. They had some bad games. They had a loss there, and then they beat the Atlanta Falcons. So What I'm trying to say is when you see that Minnesota Vikings unbelievable play, didn't you feel like maybe they blew the load a little too early?
Just a little bit.
And it's going to come down to who wants it more. In that house with these masks and those fans and that team, Eagles are going to want it more 20-14.
I also feel not as confident as last week, but I do feel confident. I think they're going to win something ugly, 17-13-ish. I think the defense is going to come up with a big turnover from pressure from the line. And I think Aguilar is going to make a play that kind of gets that stadium just erupting, and I like them to win.
I'm going to go 17-14 Birds, and Jake Elliott's going to kick a 50-yarder as time expires and the stadium just explodes. That's where I see it playing itself out.
Oh, my God.
These guys covered it. Eagles, 19-13. They're going to the Super Bowl. Why? Who cares? Enough said.
All right. You heard that?
Mic drop.
You heard that, Millie? You stay back in Minnesota. You don't want none of this, Millie. None of this. We're going to eat.